and prosecuted. The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario has introduced new curriculum to require teachers to teach elementary students about white privilege. And the federal summer grant program requires applicants to attest to the values that the government believes in. They don't have to believe it.
It's a fucking lie!
But they...
There's no such thing as compelled speech! The government cannot tell you what to do!
That's pure narcissism at work, by the way. You know, to hijack an event like this that other people put time and effort into, and to use their civility of the crowd and the civility of the organizers as an excuse to blatantly yell out your ill-informed opinions is no way to conduct a civil dialogue. It's absolutely appalling. The people who do that should be embarrassed. I guess I would also say that as students and as faculty members, you shouldn't put up with it. There's no way that you should allow people who are doing this to hijack your educational opportunities and to bend and twist the functions and the structures of the university. It's not a good thing, not in any way at all. I would say that was a very disgraceful display, fundamentally. So
let's stick with it. Why do you think people are afraid of free speech?
Well, you know, people develop an ideological view of the world because they don't want to think through things in real detail, and they're aided and abetted in that endeavor by their pathological professors who are feeding them, what would I say, an oversimplified radical view of the world that, in my estimation, is fundamentally based in resentment. Not that there's no reason for, say, a left-wing view of the world, and we can get to that later. It's easy virtue. You know, you can stand up in front of 900 people with your placard and you're screeching, and you can declaim to the entire audience your fundamental moral superiority. You can tell everyone at once that they're all beneath you and you're standing for the right thing, and absolutely none of that is earned. You know, like what the hell was that? No, seriously, man. It's just complete misbehavior. It's embarrassing. And the fact that the people who do that don't have enough sense to go hide their head in shame just tells you how badly socialized they are and how terribly educated they are. And the thing that's so awful is that there are professors and educators who promote that. They say, well, that's how you change the world. It's like, it is how you change the world, but it's certainly not how you make it better. You make it worse, clearly. You know, there's no comfort in that. And there's nothing about it that's impressive. It's no better in some sense than a 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor. It shows, as far as I'm concerned, it approximates the same level of psychosocial development. So, and the fact that this is happening continually at universities it truly makes me embarrassed to be associated with the university. And I say that with great displeasure because, you know, I've been working for great universities for a very long time, and the university is an absolutely remarkable institution. You know, it's survived for 1,000 years, and to see it brought down by by people whose behavior would be out of place at a 4-year-old's birthday party is something abysmal to behold.
I feel very lucky to have been born in this country. I think it's essentially a decent country. It does follow a lot of what happens in the United States, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I was talking to some welfare workers, police, Salvation Army yesterday, saying to me they think society is becoming, and particularly the age group we're talking, is becoming more aggressive, more cynical, more angry. Do you agree with that? And if so, why?
Well, I don't think the statistics bear that out, because what we've seen overall over especially the last 20 years, is a remarkable decline in violent crime. I do think that there might be an epidemic more of aimlessness and depression and anxiety, that sort of thing. And I think that that's partly because the case for growing up is not made well. And because we're also so cynical about our own societies. You know, I was in Amsterdam a month ago talking to a group of well-placed intellectuals. They're all friends of Theo van Gogh, who was killed in Amsterdam about 15 years ago, was stabbed. And they said that embarrassment about the Dutch culture is rampant in their society. And that just makes my jaw drop, because I go to Holland and I think, my God, this is such an amazing place. These people, they scraped this country out of the bottom of the ocean. They built dikes to hold back the waves. It's free, it's liberal, it's compassionate, it's orderly, it's beautiful.
Yet they're embarrassed by it.
They're embarrassed by it because of its tyrannical, patriarchal nature. It's like, well, who are you comparing it to? It's like, what are we comparing our societies to? Where do you want to live on the planet or in time? Anywhere but in the West? Not if you have any sense.
You've sort of been described as a warrior against political correctness. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Tell me about this then. Our national carrier, Qantas, got some attention earlier this week, and I was thinking about this, so I knew you were coming in. And they were taking advice from a diversity group that's publicly
Yeah, that's a bad
funded.
idea. Yeah, that's a bad idea.
They wanted to ban words like guys and chairman, husband and wife, replace words like mankind and chairman. What's your reaction to that?
I think that it would be better if people tried to solve some real problems instead of playing these idiot diversity games. I think that everyone who plays identity politics, whether they play it on the right or the left, is going to pay for it in ways they can hardly imagine. It's a very counterproductive way of dividing up the world. It's impossible to come to a peaceful solution in the identity politics universe. Even the identity politics types themselves, they've run into this problem they call intersectionality, right? So, okay, so you classify people by race and by sex, let's say. So, and seek for equity along those dimensions. But then, well, what about the intersection between those dimensions? So you have enough ethnic minorities in your organization, let's say. You match by population, which is a foolish way of doing it, but you do that. And maybe you're matched by sex. But then, well, what about the intersection between race and sex? Well, and then what about the intersection between race, sex, ethnicity? Then you could add social class to that. Then you could add social proclivity. Then you could add attractiveness. There's a never-ending way of dividing people up into groups, and you can't equalize across all those ways. It's just technically not possible.
Do you think people need to make a stand on issues like this? And when an airline like Qantas makes these decisions, do they need to stand against it? Do they need to boycott it? Do they need to do that sort of thing?
I think they need to understand it at a deeper level. It's like we have to decide if we're going to divide people up, if we think that dividing people up primarily by their group identity is a good idea. And it's not. It's a bad idea. It will lead to an enhancement of our tribal proclivities. And I don't think that if you're an advocate of peace, that you would push and advocate for our further division into tribal entities. It's not wise.
Is this transient? Will we move through this?
We'll see. It's been not transient in the past. It's caused tremendous troubles in the past. This is another reason why I'm not a fan of the radical leftists. So the radical left ideologies were murderous in their expression throughout the 20th century.
I mentioned earlier this country follows a lot of the US trends, good and bad. We're a little bit behind, but it can be fashion.
Like Canada.
Yeah. Well, what do we need to be alert to? What do we need to be aware of? What do we need to avoid?
We need to be alert to the benefits of the societies that we now inhabit.